I was a counselor to two female students who were having a fight over my husband, and they didn't know. I got a sweet taste of my revenge afterwards, but you won't believe what I did. I always thought I loved my job as a counselor, until that fateful afternoon I got graced with the presence of two ladies. You see, I've always wanted to be a counselor because of how much I loved talking to people and proffering help or solutions. However, the minute those two ladies walked into my office space, I could sense the end of my career. From the frown they wore on their faces, one could tell that they had a rift with each other and were probably forced to come see me by a higher authority. "You both must be," I was saying when I got cut off by the dark, chubby and sassy-looking one. "We are students. Trust me, I won't be here if that idiot lecturer that calls herself Mrs. Afemi didn't force us to come see you," she declared, hissing aloud and rolling her eyes at both me and her rival. I cleared my throat softly and smiled the minute she mentioned Mrs. Afemi. Mrs. Afemi was a lecturer at the University of Lagos, a very upright one who would never let something like a fight go without suggesting or enforcing counseling. She had paid for a countless number of counseling sessions for some students, and at this, I wasn't so surprised. "Did you both have a fight?" I asked, and darted my eyes to the light-skinned, quiet, and sort of observant one. "My name is Queen," the light-skinned lady replied, and took in a deep breath. "This witch over here wants my man," she accused and pointed at the other lady, who already jerked up, ready to have a fight. "Did you dare call him your man?" "He is my man. He met me first," the dark lady said defiantly, breathing heavily with a bloodshot pair of eyes. I gulped down hard and stared at the both of them. It wasn't unusual to have sessions like this, where two disputing people tried to solve their problems. "Relax, both of you. What's your name?" I said, and turned to the dark one, who sighed deeply. "My name is Sugar," she dropped, and for a minute, I thought I've heard wrongly. "Is that your real name?" I asked with a smile, but the loud sound of the hiss that escaped her lips made me shut down that part of the discussion. "So, a man is the basis for the fight?" I asked, and they nodded. "Let me hear from you first, Sugar," I said, and turned to the lady who first mumbled some inaudible words, rolled her eyes and hissed, before proceeding to give her part of the story. "He met me last year when I was in 300 level. He's been there for me since then. Even last year Christmas, he sponsored my vacation to Dubai and surprised me with a brand new car when I returned," she started, with tears dripping out of her eyes. I nodded calmly and gestured for her to proceed. "Early this year, he proposed to me, and I accepted. We started our wedding preparations, which was scheduled to be held a month after my graduation. That was right before he met this witch," she said, and pointed at Queen, who was smiling at something on her phone. "Queen, can you keep your phone aside, please?" I said to Queen, who nodded. "I'm sorry, it's my man. He won't stop texting and telling me sweet things," Queen said, and flashed the most innocent smile ever. Sugar clenched her fist in rage while I gestured for her to remain calm. "Queen, can I hear your side of the story?" I turned to Queen, who started blushing. "Well, I met him this year and gave him my ears each time he wanted to rant about the stupid woman he had as a girlfriend. He told me he loved me and not her. And of course, I accepted him," Queen said, with a tiny voice that was accompanied by giggles. "I still have his ring with me," Sugar yelled out of her lungs and flaunted her hand that had a beautiful diamond ring on it. "And I don't care. Perhaps he asked you to return his ring, didn't he?" Queen asked and started laughing hysterically. "That would be over my dead body," Sugar declared and slammed her fist on my table. "Hold on. A man should be the last thing to fight about. You both are pretty. Any man would kill to have you." I tried to sound encouraging. "No, I will kill to have that particular man," Sugar dropped. "And so would I," Queen added. I drew in a deep breath and calmly stared at the both of them. "It looks like this man is playing you both. Can't you see it?" I turned to Queen. "Queen, he gave Sugar a ring and then jumped to you. He would likely jump to another, and the cycle goes on," I explained, but Queen laughed aloud. "That man is taking care of me. Do you know what it's like to be given 2 million naira every month?" Queen asked, and I swallowed hard. That was honestly a lot. We are talking of value here, not money, I explained, but they both laughed aloud. I don't even know why I came for this session. Anyway, when Mrs. Ifemi asks you, do well to tell her that I showed up. For now, I need to go see my man, Queen said, and stood up to leave. Sugar jumped to her feet at that point and launched a quick attack at Queen, who didn't seem to be expecting it. In a split second, screams and sounds of slaps and punches rented the air. I could see blood coming off Queen's lips, but none of them attempted to stop the fight. Stop! You will hurt yourselves! I screamed and thought of what to do. I tried separating them, but ended up getting pushed to the wall. Just then, my eyes shifted to the wine I had in my rack. I picked it up, together with 2 glass cups. Before the fight continues, I think we should make a toast. I poured the drink into the cups and passed each cup over to them. Let's make a toast to life, maybe. I said and wore a soft smile that got them confused. A drink? In the middle of this? Queen asked as the fight came to an abrupt halt. I nodded and gestured for them to go ahead and have the drink. To life! Queen said, and clinked her glass cup on that of Sugar, who was still in shock. Queen took a sip and then, Sugar! We would continue the fight after this drink because I would sure kill you, Sugar threatened Queen, after which she took another sip. I sank into my chair as I watched the both of them drinking from the glass of wine. After the entire rants and threats, I turned out to be the one who killed them because they were currently consuming a glass of poisoned wine. When I got back home that evening, I was clouded with 1,000 thoughts. I had killed the 2 ladies, successfully wrapped their bodies, and tossed them into my car's trunk. My body shook with fright. I knew that there was a need to talk to someone. About 10 minutes later, James walked in and stared at me for a while. You look like you saw a ghost. What's going on? James asked, walking over to me and cupping my cheeks. I killed 2 ladies earlier today, I divulged. But just as I had thought, he didn't believe. He broke into a loud round of laughter, clutching his stomach, and almost at the verge of rolling on the ground. He was amused and thought that I've only said the joke of the year. I know you. You can't even hurt a fly, he added after a while, still chuckling and shaking his head in utmost amusement. There are always first times. Today turned out to be mine. I don't think I regret it, I said, with a stoic attitude that made him have a rethink. What do you mean by that? He jerked to his feet, staring into my eyes and shivering in fear when it started dawning on him that I wasn't playing around. 2 ladies came to meet me today. They had a dispute over a man. I mean, none of them agreed to listen to me when I explained how a man should be the least of their problems. I explained to James, who was still looking at me with a bewildered gaze. They started fighting. It was so fierce, and I could tell that they had plans to kill each other. I took in a deep breath and locked gazes with James. I decided to help them out, I dropped in finality. James staggered and slouched into the couch beside him. Minutes passed, and none of us said a word to each other. I had to tell you this, because you are a friend I trust with all my heart. I darted my eyes to James, who suddenly went cold in fright. He looked confused and unsure of how to react. I hate it when ladies fight over men. It aches my heart and raises the nerve to strangle them just to keep them mute. That was what happened. Zrenia, I said with a shaky voice as I wiped my sweat-filled palms on my denim pants. He stood up and paced around the room, dug his hand into his hair and mumbled some inaudible words. What are you going to do now? How and why will you do something like that? He inquired, swallowing hard and failing to conceal how nervous he was. I let out a scoff and folded my hands to my chest, and then, slowly, shifted my gaze to him. This man they talked about, he is one rich dude. He even gives them a monthly allowance of up to 2 million naira. One talked about how he flew her to Dubai last December and surprised her with a car when she returned. He even proposed to her early this year. I explained to James, tears forming in my eyes and slowly rolling down to my cheeks. That is not of any concern to you. Why are you so worked up about that? It's their life, James yelled out of his lungs. I started laughing at that point. No one was going to understand. I mean, how would they? Come! You should see the bodies! I stood up and started making my way out of the room and towards the car. He slowly sauntered behind me, still in shock. I opened the trunk and moved the cloth that covered the bodies aside, revealing a part of their faces. Jesus! James screamed and moved backwards with the speed of light. I closed the trunk almost immediately and took in a deep breath. We should head back inside, I said with a low voice, slightly above a whisper. He nodded blankly, and we walked back into the living room. I had no idea of how and why he followed me back in, but I was glad he did. 20 minutes passed, and we didn't utter a word. He stared at me as much as I did. He knew what I had in my mind, and that only made it more interesting. His eyes went to the door, but I had the keys in my possession already. There was no way out, and he knew it. Do married men propose to single women? I finally asked. And again, silence rented the air. No. Would a married man spend on ladies outside when his wife has been on his neck, begging and pleading with him to lend her just $100,000 to go shopping? I asked again. And James gulped. I mean, which married man would take girls on vacations when his wife hasn't even traveled beyond Lagos State? I asked in finality as more tears poured out of my eyes. He turned cold. My friend, you should answer me, I said with a cracked voice, as my tears added in intensity. Those ladies didn't deserve to die. But then, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. I was scorned and pained. I trailed off and sniffed hard. You are my friend, James. My best friend. Tell me, what was I meant to do? What was I meant to do when sitting before me were the two ladies who tormented me in my marriage? I had known for about 3 weeks, but was silent about it. And then, luck made them come to me. And not only that, they narrated every single thing I already knew. Swing, a small, bitter kind of laughter escaped my lips. Jennifer, am I dreaming? That was the first thing James could utter. I just need you to advise me, as my best friend, I said to James, and flashed a soft smile at him. He went on his knees at that point, breathing heavily and stuttering. Jennifer, I am so sorry, he pleaded. But that heightened my amusement. Why? I asked. Please stop. You're making things worse. I apologize for hurting you. I didn't plan it this way. He apologized and made to hold me, but I moved aside. I knew you will be sorry, husband. That's why I'm sorry as well. I brought out a small knife I had in my bag. The knife came in handy since I already used the poisoned wine meant for him on his girls. He cried and pleaded, but my rage was in control already. About 30 minutes later, I sat still on the couch and gazed at James, my best friend and husband. He was there, in the pool of his blood, lifeless. Slowly, I picked up my phone and dialed the police. I just committed a murder. Murders, actually. You will find me at House 8, Purple Avenue. With that, I ended the call and drew in a very deep breath of relief. And then, I smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks,